I'd like to call to order this April 9, 2018 regular board meeting of the Columbus Municipal School Board. We do have a quorum present. On the line with us for this call is Mr. Frederick Sparks. We will now go to our second item on today's agenda, which is the invocation offered up by Ms. Cox, followed by the pledge.
Bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight thanking and praising you, dear Lord, but at the same time we're praying that you come into the midst of our meeting, be the leading force, so that we may represent our children, our parents, and our community, so that you are pleasing in our sight. This we ask in Jesus' name, and for his sake I do pray always. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please rise. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening. Board, before us we have our agenda for tonight's meeting. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I so move.
Has been motioned by Ms. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Young. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yay, it is unanimous. Next, we go to item number 4. We do have several sets of minutes, school board minutes, special minutes for March the 2nd, regular minutes for March the 8th, 2018, and then March the 16th, 2018. I need a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake, seconded by Mr. Sparks. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yay, it is unanimous. Next, we go to the next item on the agenda, which is trustee travel and discussion. We have one item for new board member training. Ms. Young will be attending the training coming up on June the 8th and 9th. So, board, I need a motion to approve the travel.
So move.
It's been motioned. Ms. Cox has been seconded by Mr. Sparks. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next, we go to item C under this section, discussion of recruitment training program, RTP, of Mississippi Agreement with Union Academy. Under this item, I believe, in talking with Mr. Dunn and the administration and the tenant, as well as working with the Secretary of State's office, I believe there's been a resolution that we can move forward with. And so I will make the motion, or Mr. Dunn, if you'd like to elaborate, or
if you'd like me to,
yes.
Mr. President, as you know, the pipes at Union Academy burst sometime in January. I think it was. It was cold. The premises became basically unacceptable to the tenant. If you can't have water to the building, you really can't use it properly. So my recommendation is that the school district, the school board, allow RTP out of the lease if they pay rent through the date until the date it became unacceptable to them, the premises. Okay. So you prorate, basically. There's past due rent. I know December has not been paid, or at least it wasn't last time I talked to someone. So if it did burst in January, you could have December being paid, and then through the date that it burst, they would pay on a daily rate, prorated, and then you could release them from the lease.
Okay. So, board, is there any questions about the recommendation to us regarding the property? Then I will make the motion to allow the tenant out of the lease upon payment of past due rent through the prorated date as to when the pipes burst and made the facility unusable. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by...
Second.
All right, it's been seconded by Ms. Young. Any additional discussion? Okay, being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yea, it is unanimous. Next, we go to our superintendent search update. Board, two different things. One, I received over the weekend from Dr. Henderson the reports from the stakeholder meetings. Was able to send those to Ms. Velma, or Ms. Woodard, excuse me, and she was able to upload and email all the trustees to let us know that the report had been compiled from the business community meeting, the stakeholder parents meeting that was conducted at Cook Elementary. Also, the school board members had submitted early on the same report details, as well as the teachers and the administrators. And so those reports have been compiled. They've been sent to me, and Ms. Woodard has uploaded to us. I would like, if it's okay with the board, to carry on as we discussed early on, to have Mr. Shannon, post them to the website, and of course, get them out some form or fashion, email, whatever he would find acceptable to all the teachers and administrators, but then also with your permission to be able to get that to the local media so that they can also publish those same reports so that everyone can see how the stakeholders and everybody who's vested in this process has answered and what they're looking for us to take into consideration as we move forward. So does anyone have any questions about the process, or is everyone okay with us moving ahead with those same parameters?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. So, so I will do that. I will, Mr. Shannon, I'll get with you. I think you should have them from Ms. Woodard if you would figure out how you want to send them out. Okay. All right. And as far as the upcoming superintendent search, couple of dates to remember. We have our report from Dr. Henderson. She will be here on April the 25th at 11:30 a.m. here in this, maybe not in this room, but here at Brandon, probably down in the smaller room, to be able to receive information about the candidate pool. One piece of information that we can share at this particular time is that we had a total of 21 applicants for the position that got everything in. Now, as we kind of receive the report on April the 25th, there may be some of those particular applicants that didn't qualify for one reason or another, but we will not know that until that day. And is there any other questions about the search or other details? Okay. So that'll take us to our next item, which is...
Excuse me, you said a couple of dates. Was there another one, or just the 25th?
Well, just
Okay.
the 25th, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then that carries us to our next item on the agenda, which is update regarding the burglary at the maintenance shop. Mr. Shannon?
Thank you, President Spears, other members of the board, Mr. Sparks. As you recall, we did have a burglary of our maintenance shop in which several items were stolen from that location. We did file a police report with the Columbus Police Department. We were assigned an investigator by the name of Mr. Thomas Watkins. He has continued that investigation through this time. We have informed the board of the items that were taken, and those items include 1997 brown Chevrolet one-ton pickup truck, an X-Mark 60-inch lawnmower, 2003 black 7x16 trailer with liftgate, and also a steel weed eater. We have not been able to retrieve those items through law enforcement, but the investigation is still ongoing. We have been informed that if the items are located anywhere, especially the truck throughout the nation, that we will be receiving a notification. Also, if the lawnmower is attempted to be sold at a pawn shop, if the pawn shops follow the procedure that is set forth, we will receive a notification of that also. I did talk to Mr. Watkins on Friday of last week, and to date there is no new information.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. I believe we did contact our insurer, and they were able to give us some compensation for the items to help, but I think it was maybe $6,900. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. In December of 2017, we did receive an insurance check for $6,125.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board, is there any questions regarding this item? And if, at this point, I'll let it be to where if Mr. Shannon has any additional new information, he can bring it back to the board at that point. All right, next we go to item F, discussion and consideration of changing the date of the May 14th, 2018 regular meeting from 6 p.m. until 8:30 a.m. I know Ms. Woodard was able to reach out to everyone regarding the item. And the main reason is that I know we have class night also, that Thursday night we have graduation, and there's going to be a lot of activities going on in the school district, so I thought maybe this would help those having to work within the district have more, as far as, having these other events ongoing right at the end of school. But what is the will of the board?
I move that we change our board meeting time from 6 p.m. on the 14th of May to 8:30 a.m. in the morning.
Okay, so we do have a motion from Dr. Shoemake to change the time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Ms. Young. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yea, it is unanimous. And Ms. Woodard, if you would make the change of posting. Thank you. Next, Board, we go to item 5, which is consent agenda. We have our monthly policy updates, where we have item 1 through N. Then we have 2, consideration to rescind, 2A and B. And then we have our consideration for approval, which these will not be taken up. They just sit out for 30 days to our next meeting, to May the 14th. Approval, which is 3. 4 is the consideration to approve new policies, and to rescind policies is 5. Then we have dates to remember. We have our academic dates, we have our athletic dates, and our upcoming board meeting dates, and the time will be changed for the 14th. Consideration to approve student transfers is C, and then D is the CAF Red Tail Squadron Rise Above program that will come visit our students at the middle school. So, Board, for all the items listed on the consent agenda, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Yes.
A quick question. The Red Tail, what's the date for that? Do we have a date?
Yes, Mr. President, Dr. Shoemake, we are working out a schedule with the county. They will have it at one of their middle school locations, but it'll range from the 16th to the 19th. We won't know the date until we're able to just collaborate that with the county, with Lowndes County.
April or May?
April, I'm sorry, April. But they will spend one full day at Columbus Middle School, and all of our students will get to have that experience.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shoemake. Board, any additional discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next, we go to open forum. Okay, there's no one signed up for open forum this evening. That'll carry us to our agenda item 7, which is Office of Business Management. And the good news being delivered by Mr. Leslie Shivers on our CMSD audit report. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Shannon.
Very happy to have with us tonight Mr. Leslie Shivers, who provides assistance to our district with auditing our financials, and he has some news to share to our board members.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. We completed the audit probably about 6 weeks ago or so, and obviously have issued that report. Copies are on file here in the business office. To keep it very simple and to put it in some layman's terms, as an auditor, we really don't prefer to go down this route, but we would refer to it as a clean audit. I have several obligations and responsibilities as your auditor. One is to issue an opinion on your financial statements. The objective there being that I would opine that those financial statements are free of material misstatement. That is the opinion that I give on those financial statements. We would refer to that as an unmodified opinion, fancy term for everything is fine as it relates to materiality. We audited 2 federal programs. I don't necessarily get to pick and choose which federal programs I care to audit. The federal government suggests that I follow a certain procedure. When I get to the end of that, then whatever falls out will be the federal programs that are subject to audit. For the fiscal year 17, it was Title I and SPED Ed, or IDEA Part B, if you will. My objective there is to test for essentially material compliance. The opinion that I issue on those 2 federal programs states that those programs are free of material non-compliance. As part of this overall audit program, on the financial side, we do take a very hard look at the financial accounting controls as they relate to the more significant areas of operation. We're looking for a system of controls that are suitably designed to achieve management's objectives. That primary objective would be financial statements that are free of material misstatement. We found that design of those controls was suitable. However, we, as auditors, we trust, but we happen to verify as well. So we did some limited testing of those controls to see if what we said was in fact in place, we were in fact doing. We found both on the items that we tested that the system was working as designed. Keep in mind, I do not issue an opinion on the accounting controls. It's just merely some assessments that I make about the design and whether or not they're functioning as designed based on the testing that I did. There is always that risk that there's a transaction out there that I did not look at that is in non-compliance with those accounting controls, and that risk is just inherently there. The other thing that we do at the request of the state auditor, we test for certain state legal compliance matters. For example, whether or not each of you are properly bonded. We test for the state purchasing laws. We will test the manner in which you requested your ad valorem taxes. And there's a lot of others as well, the rehire of retirees and what have you. Our testing there indicated, again, compliance with what the auditor's office is asking us to test. So it's a really good, clean audit. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the audit report. Simply stated, it's confusing, okay? There's not many, financial, governmental accounting is probably one of the more complex areas that's out there, believe it or not. And it's one of the most confusing as well. One page that's in the audit report that I like to mention, and you can write this page number down, it'll be page number 57. And what that gives us here is a 4-year comparison of the general fund. And you can look at your revenues by major category, local, state, federal. You can look at expenditures, again, by major categories, and all the way down to the ending fund balance. And it'll give you some overall sense of the general fund, which is the primary operating fund. And you can kind of get a feel for what's going on with the district at that level. Just a couple of observations that I can see there, particularly on the state revenues. When I look at 16 and then I compare it to 18, I see the 18 number drop off. You know, my general assumption there is because I know your state revenues are directly tied to students, perhaps you're having a drop in your ADA. And that obviously affects, and to some extent too, we might not have been funded to the extent that we would prefer as well. So it's a couple of combinations there. But that's an interesting page in the report to look at. I think my final comment would certainly be this, that your staff is to be commended. Simply stated, I cannot do the job you hired me to do without their assistance. I know when I walk in the door, I am, myself and the others that assist me, we're interrupting the workflow of your staff. They were very courteous, they were very professional, They were extremely accommodating. The audit process is a lot of involvement. I might come in and see Ms. Holmes, and right behind me might be either Ronnie or Megan that accompanies me on these jobs. The staff stopped, they addressed our needs, they pulled our documents, they answered our questions, and that allowed us to get in and get out of here in a short period of time. I know your staff just loves us to death, but, you know, they like to see us go as well, and we understand that. But it's a great audit. I think we're on a 3-year cycle. I think this was my 2nd year. So got another year under contract with you. Be working after June 30 on into August. Be working with Ms. Holmes to work out a schedule to come back in for next year. Like I said, it's a good audit. Enjoyed your staff, very accommodating. If I can ever be of any assistance to any of you, feel free to call up on me. I mean, I am your auditor. That's part of my role. I'm not the bad guy. All right? You know, sometimes I'm your best friend. All right? But I'd be glad to help you any way I can. Anyway, if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to entertain those. Otherwise,
Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Sugars? Just one thing I'll run by. Thank you very much for doing your job and doing it well and helping with our staff to get us not, in compliance, but also working to get better. Because if I remember from last year, there was just a little bit of a message that the feds had put out that hadn't really circulated enough about the lower threshold of $3,500, and so that's where we got dinged. But I didn't see that as being a problem as we moved into this year. So that's always good to see that we're mobile enough to get things adjusted.
yes, and what you're referring to there is that new uniform guidance that's been out. That's a federal document that applies to anyone that's getting federal dollars. And the interesting thing is, I don't know why they call it guidance, because it's requirements. But yeah, the $3,500 threshold is out there. I think the Department of Education, as the recipient of these federal dollars, as they flow through down to you, the subrecipient, they probably dropped the ball a little bit in that they did not adequately inform the end user, the subrecipient, of what these rules and regulations were. So everybody got off to a really rocky start on that, but after 2 years now, it seems like everybody is well informed and is doing a lot better in that area. We just can't let up. We just got to still get those quotes when we exceed the 3,500.
And one thing I had mentioned to you about is we as a board continue to take up and look through our policies and evaluate how we can strengthen things from our end of the spectrum. I think one of the questions I had posed to you dealt with, okay, on the commodity side, you have certain thresholds that you have to look at and how you go about your purchasing and, quotes and bids and how it works. And then you have your state purchasing law, and sometimes those aren't necessarily one-for-one matches. So as a board, we can evaluate our policy. So if, we're looking at whether it be a service or whether it be a commodity, there's no harm in trying to standardize that process to where all the rules can be followed in a certain format, so that if there's some service that's requisitioned, regardless of whether it be a service or a commodity, different levels, there's one standardized process that can be adhered to as we craft our overall policies moving forward.
Yeah, that is certainly an option that's available to you to work toward that end, thinking in terms of what the feds require and also thinking in terms of what the state purchasing laws require. I would probably say, certainly as you go through that, to certainly keep in mind that you may find those certain situations, particularly with the expenditure of state and local dollars, where you may want to opt for some of those exceptions that are permitted or allowed under the state purchasing laws.
Okay, good. Board, do you have any other questions or anything? All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sheriff. Greatly appreciate it.
Y'all have a good evening.
Yes, Mr. Shannon?
Thank you.
And Mr. Spears, if I could, other members of the board, I would like to commend Mrs. Holmes and her staff, Ms. Elmore, Ms. Schroeder, Ms. Blunt, Ms. Dyson. They have done a tremendous job with making sure that we follow the guidelines that have been set forth. And this is the first time, I think, since I've been here in 10 years that we've had a clean audit. So, Mrs. Holmes, we do applaud you and your staff for a job well done. And this is your state championship. So we definitely appreciate the hard work that you've completed through this process.
Keep it up. All right. Now we'll move to our next item on tonight's agenda, which is item 7B, consideration to approve the financials. We have B1, which is the monthly financial fund balance report. Cash balance is at B, and budget status report C. Then we go to B2, monthly revenue budget report. B3, monthly expenditure budget report. And B4, certification and summary of reconciled bank statements. So, Board, I need a motion for approval of the financials. Has been motioned by Ms. Cox. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Board, next we go to our monthly ad valorem tax collection. Everything's trending in the right direction. Mr. Shannon, do you have any comments about it?
No, sir.
Okay. Board, is there any questions about the ad valorem tax collection? Okay. Next, we'll go to 6, which is the athletic events report. Is there any questions regarding the athletic events report? Okay. Next, we have item 7, which is consideration to approve fixed asset disposal. I need a motion for approval. Motion by Ms. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion? Okay, being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Now we will go to our, let's see here, this is going to be 7C, discussion and consideration for approval of quarterly budget amendments. On the discussion part of it, one of the things I wanted to ask is that, obviously I know we're getting this through March the 31st, but as we move forward, in getting the budget amendments, is it something, I couldn't recall if we'd received them on a monthly basis before, if it's always been, okay, quarterly. Is there any reason that we could possibly, as a board, get them on a monthly basis? Is that, okay. And the only reason I ask is because, as you match up certain other reports that we get, it's a little bit easier to see it as it happens. But Board, do y'all have any questions about the, yes, Ms. Cox?
I do. Will the monthly amendment, will it consist of all expenditures per month, and it'll give us a monthly balance? Is that what we'll be seeing?
Spears, Interim Superintendent, Mr. Shannon, members of the Board of Trustees, what the monthly amendments would include is just the movements of those funds, only those expenditures that are affected by the amendments that we make. So the only thing you will see in those reports are the actual budget expenditure lines that are affected by the movements. Any accounts that are not touched in those amendments, you won't see in the amendment report. But they do, the entire expenditure or budget report, you do receive that on a monthly basis, showing the beginning and any monthly transactions with the ending yearly balance. I'm sorry.
And just to further clarify, this particular report is that if we start the year budgeting X dollars in this particular area, and as we go through the year and it's not being spent and we need to move it over to, say, special education, for example, to fund for that, then it has to be approved by the board that this has occurred because we approved a budget with it being spent in these different areas, and the amendments brought back to us so that we can basically attest to, okay, we're okay with you taking it out of the original budget that was going to be spent on this particular expenditure, but move it over here to fund these other operations or whatever they're needing to do with the money throughout the end of the budget year.
Okay, so I'll assume that that's like the journal entries if you have a special education, a budget amendment, and while that amendment is being approved, the district funds, maintenance is taking care of that. So when the actual funds come in, this is when you document the amendment?
Actually, these amendments that you have before you are actually district maintenance amendments. The amendments regarding the federal funds like title and sped, they are, take on a whole different premise when it comes to amendments. They, if it's a certain percentage, it has to be approved by MDE. We can't randomly move money if it's above that threshold that they set. It has to be approved. But the budget amendments that you will receive on a monthly basis is the district maintenance amendments that you'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board, and thank you, Ms. Holmes, for that explanation. Board, is there any other questions about it? Then I need a motion to approve the CMSD quarterly budget amendments for 1/1/2018 through 3/31/2018.
Mr. President,
So
I
moved.
move that we approve the CMSD quarterly budget amendment.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Cox. Do I have a second? I'll make
Second.
this seconded by Mr. Sparks. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yea, it is unanimous. Next, we'll go to item D, consideration to approve transfer of funds for state championship rings from 2017-2018 supplement list, Fund 1120, to State Championship Ring Fund 1162, for a total transfer of, or 67, yes, correct, for a total of $7,918.90. Mr. Shannon, would you like to share with us on this item?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, other members of the board. Again, we are very, very excited that we continue to celebrate the accomplishments of our 6A boys basketball team as they win the state championship this year. It is the second time in 3 years, and we would like to reward them with a lifetime memento of state championship rings. We have secured the quotes for that, both quotes, and we would like to move forward with our purchase so that these young men can receive their rings before they enter school for next year and go on to college.
Okay. Board, is there any other questions or comments about the item? Okay. Board, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is that Ms. Young? Yes. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Sparks. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next, we go to item E, claims docket. I need a motion to pay the claims docket.
So moved.
Been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. I'll make the second. Any discussion?
I did have one question I'm
Okay.
looking for. I think it was, hang on. It had to do with glass repair. Shaw, was it Shaw? Yeah, Shaw Glass, a $4,351 bill. Does anybody, I'm assuming some glass broke.
Mr. Shannon?
It's on page 16 of the, and I'm
Yes,
sorry,
Mr.
I should have asked earlier, but I just.
No problem at all. Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, that was a repair that was made as a result of the vandalism that took place at the athletic complex. We did have some issues with some glass at our main facility and in the press box, and we did get that repaired to secure the facility.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions regarding the docket? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next, we'll go to our CMSD budget presentation for MAEP. Mr. Shannon?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to turn this portion of the agenda over to Mrs. Holmes, and I'll make some comments once she finishes.
Again, thank you, Mr. Shannon. Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, as we continue through our budgeting process, we do we will continue to look at our revenues and our expenditures as what we're projecting for FY19. A big piece of that budget cycle is our MAEP allocation. MAEP makes up about 90% of our state funds that we receive. So in conjunction with all of our other revenue streams, MAEP is one of the largest ones that we have that comes into our district, along with other revenue sources such as our local ad valorem taxes. Well, with our MAEP allocation that we've received from the state of Mississippi, MAEP, of course, is an acronym for Mississippi Adequate Education Program. And this particular funding was enacted by a legislature to ensure that every Mississippi student receives an adequate education, whether that student lives in a wealthy school district or a poor school district. It was designed to ensure equitable funding for education for our students throughout the state of Mississippi. And one of the things that MAEP, or some of the things that MAEP provides funding for, of course, is the salaries and benefits for our staff, instructional materials or classroom items, and other operational costs such as utilities, insurance, transportation, and other add-on programs like SPED or VOCED, and gifted programs that we operate throughout the district. Well, one of the issues, just looking back, MAEP was enacted in 1997 to ensure that education was adequately funded. And the purpose was that to set the amount and the allocations for all districts throughout the state of Mississippi, again, to ensure that every Mississippi student is afforded an adequate educational opportunity, regardless of where he or she lives. This was done to stave off lawsuits by other states that were facing similar situations where adequate funding was not being done. Under Mississippi's current formula, if you remember, Initiative 42 failed last year, and as well as House Bill 1240 failed to revise the MAEP formula. Based on those failures, MAEP formula still remain the same for FY19 budget purposes. The MAEP formula is calculated based on the district's ADA times that base student cost, which is approximately $5,500 per student, plus at-risk components, less any local contributions, plus any hold harmless guarantee, which is not applicable to our CMSD district. Once the total formula is calculated, any add-on programs such as SPED, VOCED, alternative education, funding for those sources, for those programs are included in that base calculation, which then becomes the district's total funding for MAEP. Well, the issue with that particular formula, as with last year's efforts, was to highlight the fact that that formula has only been funded twice since it's been enacted in law. And the last time that MAEP was fully funded was in 2008. The districts throughout the state have realized a nearly $2 billion shortage in MAEP funds since that time. And the main reason for some of the issues with MAEP is that it's outdated and unrealistic based on some of the initiatives that were created when the formula was initially set in place, that there was no consideration being taken into, things weren't being taken into considerations for those initiatives, such as the third grade literacy program. Some of our most recent developments happened this legislative session. House Bill 957 was introduced to establish a new funding formula for MAEP, but of course that initiative died in this past session. House Bill, with that succession of House Bill 957, House Bill 1592 was passed on March 26 for appropriations for MAEP allocations and other programs throughout the state of Mississippi. House Bill 1592 set funding at 9.74% below full funding, which equated to more than $240 million that districts saw that were not going to receive full funding for in FY19. So again, MAEP was underfunded for FY19 by $240 million. The governor is expected to sign the appropriation bill on April the 19th so that the final allocations can be solidified for our school districts throughout the state. For MAP allocations, you'll see that Columbus was awarded $1.8 million below full funding. The full funding allocation would have been $18.8 million. CMSD will only see $17 million in funding for MAP for FY19. So with that being said, again, CMSD, like other districts, saw a $1.8 million below funding level, which was 9.74%, and that equated to $906,000 in reduction from MAP from this particular school year, from FY18. So with the allocation will be a lump sum allocation. And what that means is that the allocation will not change due to revisions with add-on programs such as SPED, Voc Ed, CTE. So the allocation still could change based on state mandated budget reductions, but there will not be any reductions based on MAE, SPED, or Voc Ed, or any of the other add-on programs. Although the allocation has declined significantly, CMSD is will still be required to maintain maintenance of effort for SPED programs. Also, our career tech and alternative school programs will still be required. The teacher units will be required for CTE at the same level that we currently have, so we cannot reduce the teacher units for the career and tech program. The statutory minimums for the gifted program will still be in effect. CMSD will still be required to provide a gifted program for grades 2 through 6 for FY19 school year. Although the funds have decreased, we still be required to meet those requirements. Pictorially speaking, MAP funding trend, you'll see that for FY17, the district was awarded $18.9 million. As of FY19, the district will realize a total reduction of $1.9 million in MAP funding just since FY17. So you'll see that it's a disturbing trend, but it is one that is happening almost statewide. With MAP being making up 90% of the state revenues that we receive, and it's approximately 40% of our total revenues throughout the district, it lends or has a significant weight on projected staff for FY19. We do expect to employ 285 certified staff members. That's including librarians, curriculum coordinators, teachers, etc. 8 assistant principals, and 10 counselors throughout the school district, for a total projected staff, certified staff of 303 individuals. We do expect to see staff reductions, teacher unit reductions specifically. 7 of those, 3 will be at Cook Elementary in the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grades. Also, we'll see a reduction of 3 teacher units at Columbus Success Academy due to the closure of the Overage Academy, and then 1 reduction at Columbus High in science. We do expect to realize 2 additions to the staff based on student enrollment. 1 teacher unit at CMS in 8th grade math, and 1 teacher unit added at CHS for the junior ROTC program. As you may recall, that program, in order for us to be in compliance with the junior ROTC program, we will need to add 1 additional staff personnel to the personnel for ROTC in the upcoming school year. So that results in 5 net projected teacher unit reductions for FY19. And as you can see, with the reductions, we will continue to assess the needs of the district, and we'll be faced with making probably some difficult decisions, but with the revenue trends going in the direction that they're going, then we could be potentially looking forward to seeing some reductions or cuts throughout the district.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holmes. Board, in reviewing this presentation, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Holmes regarding tonight's presentation, MAP? Couple things I'd just like to run by you and spotlight. As I know, just in discussion with Mr. Shannon and stuff, is that over the last 4 years, we've lost about 350 students, and so that impacts the amount of allocation that we receive. And of course, last year was a pretty rough year across the state, because, I mean, not only was it mental health, but everything took a cutting, including school funding that impacted us. Is that correct? Okay. So being at 17 million, I think, as you were just, showing us, some of the programs, a net 5 teachers reduction, just to be clear, 3 of the 5 are at a particular program that's no longer going to be utilized, if I understood your presentation to be correct, here in the district, and everything. So certainly I think we're working hard to try to adapt to where we need to be. And Mr. Shannon, do you have any other comments?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, other members of the board. Thank you, Ms. Holmes, for that very thorough presentation. And I want the board to realize that we are continuing to work through our fiscal year 19 budget. We will have our personnel, certified personnel, solidified by the May board agenda. Even with the reductions, we will still be working within the guidelines set forth by MDE as for class size and programs that have to be offered. And of course, we'll make sure that our students receive the best education possible. Once we have our certified personnel list solidified, we will then look at other areas where adjustments can be made. We do want to make sure we give our students what they need to be successful, but we want to make sure we're also very efficient with the dollars that we ask for within our district. We do feel very comfortable that we will be able to offer programs at the same level of effectiveness. We may not just be able to offer as many, but we feel like that quality will be a lot better than quantity as we move forward, as we continue to try to improve student achievement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shannon. Board, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Ms. Holmes. Great job. Next, we'll go to item 8 on our agenda tonight, 8A, which is school operations, interim superintendent travel. Board, it's uploaded into board book. Had a chance to review. It's there. Mr. Shannon, do you have any report that you'd like to brief the board about tonight? Okay. All right. Then we go to 8A2, instructional technology budget update, and this is an item that had been discussed at a meeting in the past regarding different technologies and different things. I know as we're going into our FY19 budget, it's being reviewed. Mr. Shannon, would you like to elaborate on it a little bit more?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. As we continue to comb through our fiscal year 18 budget, we are identifying things that may not be utilized in our FY19 budget. We did want to update the board. We did find a program that was entitled DG Flick Company, and it did cost the district $45,000 this fiscal year. We will not be including that item in the FY19 budget, and you see our updated total of savings is over $200,000, and this is not a final figure. We hope we will continue to comb through the budget to find those things that we're just not utilizing at this point, and if it needs to be replaced with something else, we'll definitely take a look at that, but if not, they will be eliminated from the budget.
Okay. All right. Board, yes, Ms.
I have
Cox.
a question. I see that you are looking at not using COAT assessments. So do you have something that you'll replace that with in order to track student data?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Cox, if you'll notice on the chart, you see that this is a duplicate product. We'll use the ELS snapshot assessments, and it basically will provide the same information.
Thank you very much for that question. Any other questions, Board? And I appreciate y'all going through the different programs. I know something we talked about just to see if there's any redundancy in the system or programs that may not be bringing value within the district for the dollars we're spending. So thank you very much for this report. And next we go to item 8B, which we have staff personnel, and I think, Mr. Shannon, you have one adjustment to the staff personnel under 8B1.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, other members of the board, we would like to hopefully welcome to our district someone that is in the audience today. We have a counselor that we'd like to bring and recommend to the middle school. Her name is Tracy Risher. She comes to us with 26 years of experience. She is a national board certified teacher coming from Brookhaven, and we do want to welcome her to the Columbus Middle School. After, of course, she is approved, we want to add her to the agenda, the personnel agenda on tonight. So, Ms. Risher, we're very happy to have you here, and thank you for making a trip up from Brookhaven.
Thank you very much. And if we could, Board, if you look at the staff personnel for tonight, you'll see recommendations that go through item number 10. Then we will place this recommendation as offered by Mr. Shannon as item 11 under recommendations. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. So we'll take up tonight's staff personnel with the addition. Mr. Dunn, is that okay to do? Okay. So with the one addition, that's number 11. So I need a motion for approval of the staff personnel with the addition.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Ms. Young. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Welcome. Next, we go to item B2, 8B2, consideration to approve CMSD 2018-2019 salary schedules. Before we get into it, I'll ask my standard question. Mr. Shannon, is there anything we need to know about before we consider it?
No, we knew better. No changes to the agenda. No changes to the salary schedules.
Okay. All right. So, Board, with the recommendation before us, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. Do I have a second? I'll make a second by Ms. Cox.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next, we go to 8B3, consideration to approve 2018-2019 certified personnel. Board, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. Do I have a second? I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Item 8B4, consideration to appoint Dalton McAlpin as hearing officer for staff termination hearing. Board, I need a motion for approval.
I so move.
It's been motioned by Ms. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Young. Discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Now we go to item 5, consideration to approve advertisement for school picture bid 657. Board, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
It has been motioned by Ms. Young, has been seconded by Mr. Sparks. Discussion, Mr. Shannon, if you want to clarify, I think this is just for school pictures, correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, other members of the board. This is to allow us to construct a list of approved vendors for the 18-19 school year, and this is only for school pictures. Athletic events, homecoming, things of that nature will be allowed to solicit their own vendor.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Now we go to item 6, consideration to approve the purchase of 4 new school buses from fund balance. And just to clarify, there are 2 regular buses, is that correct, Mr. Shannon? And then there are 2 special education buses, and the difference in price between the 2 is the number of restraints. One has 42 restraints on one of the special education buses, and the other has 36, or something to that effect. So that's the difference in price between the 2 buses. So I need a motion to approve the purchase of the buses.
So moved.
Has been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. Do I have a second?
Second.
Has been seconded by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Next is item 7, consideration to approve music therapy agreement with Healing Notes Music Therapy. Board, I need a motion for approval.
So move.
Has been motioned by Ms. Cox. I'll make the second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. Now, Board, we will move to 8C, which is the goals update, student attendance report. Board, is there any questions regarding the student attendance report? I know we're getting to the end of the school year, and so the green is transitioning to other shades, but it's still good. Any questions about the student attendance report? Okay. Next, we'll go to C2, which is the dropout report. And any questions regarding the dropout report?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Cox.
With the, there are like several children that have dropped out. And I'm sort of looking at where it says, due to, the compulsory age. And I'm sure we do have steps in place that we are looking at these children if they are like if they're moving to the 9th grade and what age they are upon leaving Columbus Middle School. If they are 16, 15, and they're still at Columbus Middle School, and within the next year, they'll be moving to the high school, and the tendency for them to become, by the time they're 17, and they'll probably be in the 9th grade, that could be why we're having this large number of children dropping out. Would you think?
Yes, Mr. Shannon.
Yes, Mr. President, Ms. Cox, other members of the board, you brought up a very good point, and that is why the district decided to implement our Fast Track Success Academy at Hunt over the last few years. That is a program where students that were overage and they had a failing rate of 2 or more years on their permanent record, we did allow those students to make up 2 years in one. The first semester would be 7th grade, second semester would be 8th grade, and the way that we could do that and get the right number of seat time in there was to eliminate some of the electives courses that they would take and also make sure they receive very rigorous instruction by certified teachers. Those students have matriculated their way throughout our system, and as we move forward, we're not seeing as many students that need that service. We've also implemented a few years ago our 9th grade academy at Columbus High School, and we do our best to keep those students segregated from the rest of the population to give them more of a focus on obtaining the number of credits needed to become sophomores. My experience of being a high school principal and the research shows if they make it through that 9th ninth grade year the first time and get the 6 credits, they're more likely to graduate. I do see Mrs. Dismukes in the audience here today. She is our Freshman Academy Director at Columbus High School, and along with Mrs. Cargile and the rest of the staff, they've done a tremendous job of making sure those students receive the credits they need to graduate from high school. Unfortunately, as you look at this report, some students, once they hit the age where they are able to make that decision themselves to leave school, they're choosing to find other avenues to continue their lives as successful citizens. That may be obtaining their GED, going on to community college. It may be entering the workforce with some type trade. But our counselors do work with those students and parents to try to find a situation where it's a win-win for all involved. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen for everyone, but the effort is made to reach every student that does decide to leave our district.
So therefore, the ones that are deciding to leave the district, then there is a plan set up for them if they are going to go GED or not. And there's a way of sort of tracking them.
I don't want to mislead you. There's a
Yes, sir.
proposed plan that is for them, that our counselors and administrators reach out and try to work with them. Sometimes that is not met with open arms.
Got it. Thank you very much.
And one question I have with respect to, here in the industrial community, there's the Work Keys program, and you have to score at least a silver or higher to be considered as an applicant for a lot of the positions. Are we reaching out to them with that type of proposal of, if you're wanting to explore options in the job community in this region, that they're still able to come to school, do the training, and possibly be able to do the Work Keys test to see how they score or get additional training to help their skill set?
Yes, with those students that are currently still enrolled with us, we offer a class. One of our teachers is an instructor for the Work Keys program, and most recently, as last week, we had a group of students to go out and participate in that test, and we are awaiting those results. That may be back, and I'm not aware of it. But Mr. Bray, Mrs. Cargile, our counselors, and also Laura Davis, they do work with those students that decide to leave if we know about their plan for when they want to leave, and we also reach out to them and get a response. We do try to help them develop a transition plan into life, and it does include the Work Keys program.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Shannon. Board, is there any additional questions regarding the dropout report for this month? Okay. Next, we'll go to C3, which is the school safety report, student discipline. Across the district. Board, is there any questions about any specific campus report or the district report? Yes, Dr. Shoemaker.
Actually, I just have a general question. I know I've noticed the numbers have gone up again this year, so no surprise there. I was wondering if over the summer or any time during the year there is a district-wide meeting, or if there's school meetings in which, or particular school meetings in which principals get together with staff and analyze the discipline problems for the last couple of years to see if there are any trends, and then try to be proactive. I mean, we know there's going to be discipline problems on the buses. That always happens. So I guess I'm asking, is there any kind of push to be proactive to look at things that have happened and then try to come up with a way to address those before they happen?
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Shoemake, Mr. President, other members of the board, that is a great question. Our principals do meet with central office staff and have their big 3 meetings each month where they bring back information on academics, discipline, and attendance, and we cover that, and that information is shared with administrators in their building and other staff members. But one of the things that we're trying to implement, and as we transition into next year, is to make sure that we are proactive and try to address some of those issues before they happen. One example will be, we will look at a student's discipline report as they transition to the next year and try to set up meetings with those parents and students over the summer to see if there's anything that we can do to make the transition to the next grade level a lot easier, and we're more successful as we form that partnership. Also, one thing that we've talked about here at Central Office is looking at those things that really have a negative impact on student achievement and disrupt the educational setting. We're in school, so there's going to be disruptions that take place. But if we look at something that we call the Big Five things that we just don't tolerate or we can't tolerate within our schools because it is affecting student learning, those things to me would be fighting, weapon possession, drugs, disrespect to staff members in a very abusive way, and disruptive behavior, which keeps a teacher from teaching. So if we concentrate on those 5 and we can eliminate those, we feel like not only it will create an environment that's more conducive to learning, it definitely helps raise student achievement, and our students will know that this type of behavior is not tolerated by administration, but more than that, it's not tolerated from their other members of the student body, and those numbers will hopefully go down. So as we move forward, we'll continue to try to make more of an effort towards that end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board, is there any other questions regarding the discipline reports? All right, we'll move to the teacher attendance report. And that looks great. Education starts with the teacher, right? Correct. So that's great reports to see. Board, any questions regarding teacher attendance? All right, next we go to our workers' compensation report. I know the information has been put into resources for us to review, but is there any questions regarding the safety report? Okay. Next, we'll go to Office of Instruction and Assessment. First up, we'll have Dr. Smith come present or talk to us about special education update. Mr. Shannon?
Dr. Smith, if you'll come and provide a report. And as she's coming, I do want to thank Dr. Smith for her efforts over the last few months in trying to correct some things that are happening in our special education department. I have had a chance to attend the SPED Advisory Committee on last week, had some parents to attend that, and I think today, did you not have a meeting with some of our other stakeholders to discuss the progress of our corrective action plan? So, Mrs. Smith, thank you for a job well done. Continue that, and we look forward to hearing your report on tonight.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mrs. Spears, Mr. Shannon, and other board members, it is indeed a pleasure to speak to you all tonight on the happenings of the special ed department. Since the February board meeting, I would like to provide you with the following updates of the Office of Special Programs. As Mr. Shannon said, the Special Ed Advisory Committee met on March 6th as well as April 3rd, and currently there are about 5 consistent members attending the meeting. It was suggested that we solicit more parents to join the committee. It was also suggested that we place an ad in the newspaper as well as post the application on the district website to solicit more members. And we do plan to have a meeting sometimes over the summer. It has not been scheduled yet, but when it is, it will be shared with the board. We had a parent meet and greet on March the 6th, and the purpose of this meeting was to provide the parents with an update on the state complaints and to solicit input for our department. At that meeting, a survey to gather feedback was distributed to the parents. And we asked the parents we had 2 questions. We asked them to list the top 3 areas where we were doing well, and of course they said technology in the schools for the special education classrooms. They said the climate of the IEP meetings, and they said communication was getting better between the department and the community. We also asked for 3 areas where we needed improvement. And they shared with us that better transition of our special ed students moving from elementary to middle school, from middle school to high school, and of course from high school to the life after high school or the world of work. And better communication to the community and the schools from the special ed office to those different, to those 2 that I just named, sorry. Okay. An informal lunch and learn was held today with the parent stakeholders who filed the form of state complaints, and they were all able to attend. The purpose of this meeting was to provide updates to the constituents of the actual complaint and to let them know how we are addressing the deficiencies. We also gave the group the opportunity to provide feedback. We did receive our systematic formal complaint findings, and it was shared with the board at the last board meeting. But since then, we have submitted our corrective action plan to the MDE Office of Special Education. We have also analyzed the findings report, planned and held some of the trainings that we must conduct in order to become compliant. Much of the training is ongoing since the deficiencies were prevalent in the first 3 formal complaints. We are utilizing our days with the consultants for professional development with teachers and administrators. Technical assistance is also being provided to the district from MDE in the areas of noncompliance. And we have also developed a standard operating procedures manual, and all special ed teachers have been trained on using that manual. That manual will also be shared with the building principals on this Friday. And as for personnel, we have advertised for the psychologist position and have had some interest. We intend to have a recommendation for the board on the May agenda. And that's all I have. You all have any questions?
That is really great. Thank you very much. Board, do you have any questions for Dr. Smith? I thank you because as we received the report of just how at risk and how problematic issues existed in the special education department, for you to take the reins and be very public about it and come forward and help to find correct measures. And certainly I know as a board we have to work to provide the resources, but thank you for this ongoing dialogue, not only with us but everyone involved, to keep this issue getting resolved, but also improving so that the students are getting more than what they need to achieve. Thank you very much. Board, any other questions?
No.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next, Board, our next item is item 9B, Summer Instructional Programs for Information Only. Mr. Shannon, would you like to elaborate a little bit about this item?
Thank you, Mr. President, other members of the board. You do have before you a listing of what we will offer our students in the summer of 2018. We do have our 3rd grade summer academy. That's for those students that need a little assistance or some interventions in reaching the desired score on 3rd grade reading gate. Also, our SPED extended school year that Dr. Smith will head for us. We have our credit recovery program for Columbus High School. That is for students that have taken a course and didn't make a passing grade. They'll get a chance to have a computer-based program to assist them with that this summer so they can get that Carnegie unit, and that does help us with our dropout prevention. Also, extended school year at CMS. As you know, we're on a modified 10-point grading scale, so a 65 is failing for the middle school. We may have some students that have a 61 or a 62, and instead of having them to repeat that entire grade for that subject, we do have some work that they can do in the summer months to get that grade up to at least passing so they can move to the next grade level and won't have to repeat the 7th or 8th grade. And then we have Project Falcon Soar at CMS, which is a part of our 21st Century Grant Project, and we have a lot of students that are involved with that. So we do have a very busy summer planned, and we do look forward to providing our students these services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shannon. Board, is there any questions or comments regarding the summer instructional programs? We want to keep education going every day, every month, right? All right. Now, next we go to 9C, which is discussion of reading programs at CMSD elementary schools. One thing that I put this on here for discussion, and it actually is a segue from what you just discussed, is as we go into the summer months, reading, whether it be reading in the elementary schools, as kind of talked about here, but middle school or high school, is to make sure that we can provide opportunities or highlight opportunities that our students will be able to tune into with respect to preventing the summer slide. And that's, awareness of being able to go to the library, or if they're going to be coming to a school campus for reading. I think Mr. Shannon had mentioned about talking to them about the libraries being open so that they could go in and check out books to continue to have access to it and keep that going. Also, there's some other questions about programs as far as reading in the elementary school. Dr. Shoemaker, I think you had a question
Yeah,
about
just
something.
a real quick one, and this is just for my information, and I should have asked this 2 years ago. There's a program which I think is called AR. Is that the one that's used to sort of judge where students are in their reading skills?
It's one of the tools, and if you don't mind, I have some information I'd like to share with the
Oh,
board. And it may
wonderful.
eliminate
Sure.
some of the questions or answer some of the questions that you may have, and then we will make sure that we also upload this information to Board Book as we move forward. And I would like to talk about some meetings that I had today with some community members that may be beneficial as we continue to form partnerships within our district. The first program I'd like to talk about is a Big Day for Pre-K, which is what we use with our pre-K students. And you don't have to try to write all this down, I'll give it to you. But it is a comprehensive theme-based program that integrates literature and informational text into the pre-K classroom. The program is designed to introduce students to new vocabulary, concepts, and skills and prepare them for kindergarten readiness. That's the pre-K program we use, Big Day for Pre-K. We also have the McGraw-Hill Reading Mastery Signature Edition. That is K1. The Reading Mastery program serves as a core reading program for students in kindergarten and first grade. The program is highly explicit, meaning it is the instruction approach. This program addresses oral language, language arts, and literature. The reading strand addresses all 5 essential components of reading as identified by Reading First, and that is phonemic awareness, phonics, word analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We have the West Virginia Phonics Program, K through 3, and it's a supplemental and intervention phonics program that is utilized by K through 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms to support phonics instruction. We have the CMSD units in grades 2 through 5, a core reading program that utilizes literature and informational text to teach the Mississippi ELA, which is English Language Arts, College and Career Readiness Standards. These units utilize specific pieces of grade-appropriate Lexile literature. We do utilize the Orton-Gillingham-based Reading First program, and that is in select K through 3 general ed classrooms and some K through 5 SPED classrooms. MDE training approach designed to assist teachers in teaching struggling readers. Multi-sensory approach to teaching reading explicitly teaches the relationships between letters and sounds. We have the Ready Mississippi, not to be confused with iReady, but the Ready Mississippi program, which is a pilot program we're using at Fairview, Franklin, and Stokes Beard. Standards-based print program that can be used as a core reading program or for interventions. It is aligned also with Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards. We have the Michael Hegarty program strategies, K through 3. The MDE literacy coaches, they use this program as an intervention program used to mainly focus on phonemic awareness. The AR program that you mentioned before, K through 5 program, supplemental program used at Cook, Franklin, and Sale at this current time. It is a computer-based program that helps teachers manage and monitor student independent reading practice. Students select books based on their zone and proximal development, or ZPD, the readability range in which students select books. Students read the books at their own pace, and when finished, they take a short comprehension quiz on the computer. Last but not least, we have our iStation program through K through 5. This is another online program that provides digital reading lessons for students. The program can be used as intervention, enrichment, and/or supplemental program. The summer reading programs that we offer are in partnership or within our schools. We have the open ebooks K through 12. Give students access to online library of literature. Students have access to thousands of ebooks so they can have reading content available during the summer months. The summer reading packets are distributed K through 8. Packets designed with activities specific to Mississippi ELA courses, Common and Career Ready standards. Students will receive a packet of activities to take home to work over the summer. Also, we have a partnership with Columbus Lowndes Public Library, K through 8, provides students with information related to summer reading programs. We have our third grade summer academy that I mentioned before, and iStation also can be utilized over the summer. Just today, I had a chance to meet with Lindsay Beck and Peter Imes with Imagination Library. This is a program that works with the community to provide reading resources for children in grades, from birth to 5 years old. And then we have the My Books program that picks up from there and takes the students on to the next level. Also had a chance to meet with Mr. Danny Avery with the United Way to discuss a partnership with Grade Level Reading Program, a GRL. They concentrate on 3 basic principles, which are the school readiness, attendance, and summer learning. They also assist with our VIP program, which is our volunteer impact partners, and it currently has about 25 to 30 volunteers. So there are a lot of interested stakeholders who want to assist the school district and our students with reading and reading comprehension, and giving our parents the skills they need to assist our students when they get home and in the summer months. We are very willing from an administrative standpoint at central office to partner with these organizations. I have asked that the program with Mr. Imes and Mr. Avery, that they would come back and give us more information at the May board meeting so that we can move forward with those partnerships before we head into the summer months.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shannon. Dr. Shannon?
That was a great overview. I appreciate that. I did have just one question. I noticed that, to go back to the well, let me rephrase it. The AR program you mentioned was at Cook, Franklin, and Sale. Would that not be, is there a reason it's not at the other 2 grammar schools? Stokes Beard and Fairview.
Yes, ma'am. There's a reason. As we made the transition from with administrators at Fairview, that program was not picked up by the outgoing administrator, and when the new administrator got settled in and realized it was not there, it was too late in the year to get that done. In Stokes Beard, we decided not to use that program because we tracked the utilization over the past few years, and as you know, Stokes Beard achieves at a very, very high level, and her teachers felt more comfortable utilizing the strategies they had in place because it had more of an impact, they thought, for their student body on student achievement. And we are very pleased with the results that we've had from Stokes Beard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One question, comment that I have, and it's something that I'll echo again that I have asked in the past, is that we have registration every year in the lottery and different things as to parents coming to the district and saying where they would like their children to be placed. One of the questions that I proposed before is engaging the parents to say, are there any other students or children that you have in your home that may not be in pre-K or K? And what are we as a school trying to do to engage them if they have a 2-year-old or 3-year-old? I know they may be in another early learning center or another program here in town, but as a school district, are we engaging them on that level and providing them, say, a packet of information or some other resources that they can take back and still use to maybe be able to work in beside what they're already learning and doing, so that as they come to the pre-K or the K program here at the school, they already are familiar with some of the baseline, or maybe it's just the first time they're exposed to it, that they have that information. Is that something that the registration part of students that are here in the school district, that they may have younger siblings at home, that we could start reaching out to them to try to get as far down as to first, 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds?
Yes, sir, Mr. Spears. As you know, this issue or question came up a few months ago, and we are working as a school district to provide that information in the form of packets to some community stations or stakeholders as daycares, barbershops, doctor's offices, those type things. But that did hit a stall at some point. But as we transition into the summer months, we'll make an effort to make sure we have that information throughout the pre-K registration process, and also when we register our new students in July. And we will bring that information back to the board, either through board book or through a presentation to the board to give you a chance to review those packets and see exactly what we're placing in our community centers.
Okay. Thank you. Board, is there any other questions or comments regarding this item? All right.
I have one, excuse
Yes.
me.
Go, Ms.
I just want some clarity. I'm sort of, thank you. You did give us an extensive list. And given that we have 5 elementary schools, and you may have children that are transit, they may move from Cook to Fairview or whatever during the school year, or they may move to Starksville schools and then come back. With that said, do we have a particular research-based, I'll say, reading program that is used district-wide? Accelerated Reader is a great enhancer, and the others are. But if you, do we have a consistent one that's used, a reading program?
Mr. President, other members of the board, Ms. Cox, to answer you specifically, our basic program that we use are the CMSD units that are developed and that are in accordance with the strands that are provided by MDE. Now, as we all know, programs are great. They provide good guidance and enrichment for our students, but the programs aren't exactly what we want as we continue to build capacity with our teachers and recruit and retain them. There is nothing that can substitute the service that a teacher, a great teacher, provides, and that's how you have a positive impact on instruction. So when they move from building to building or from school to school or even from classroom to classroom, we want to make sure that the quality of that teacher remains at a very high level and that they're trained on those standards that are assessed by MDE. So those CMSD units is something that we utilize and make sure that we spend a great deal of professional development, making sure that our teachers master that information so they can deliver quality instruction to our students.
Okay. See, the units are different to me. That's why I'm asking the question. So the units, they do entail all the components of teaching reading.
Yes, ma'am.
I would love to see these units if I could.
And we would love to show them to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions regarding 9C? All right, that moves us to item 10, which is closed determination for executive session. I need a motion to go into closed determination.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Dr. Shoemake. Any discussion?
Second.
Being no Mr. Sparks? Okay. All in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote?
Yay.
It is unanimous. We'll be out shortly to make our announcement. Thank you all for being here tonight. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. President Spears, other members of the board, I apologize. Ms. Holmes has brought to our attention that in order to buy the buses, we need to increase the budget by that amount to purchase the buses, even though we approved to buy those out of fund balance. I think it has to be noted that we increased the budget by that amount.
We need a motion to amend the agenda.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes, sir, it would be to increase the FY18 budget by $368,950.
Okay, let me make sure I get on this. Okay, to purchase school buses, okay. All right, so the motion would be consideration to approve amendment to increase the fiscal year 2018 budget amendment to purchase school buses of $368,950. And so that is the motion. Do I have a second? Has been seconded by Ms. Cox. I made the motion, yes, sir. All right, has been seconded by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote? All right, so it is unanimous. Next, we go to our last item on, is that everything? Just make sure.
Yes.
Okay, so to our last item on the agenda, which is to adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn. Has been motioned by Mr. Sparks. I'll make the second. Discussion. All right, we need some discussion here, guys. All right, being no discussion, all in favor, please signify with your right hand. Mr. Sparks, how do you vote? It is unanimous. We are adjourned.
I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. All right. No, it's all
Thank you,
right.
sir.
Thank you.
Another good meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ain't turn this back on.